Hi, my name is Dina. I'm going to show you today how to make my wind turbine earrings. So go to that list of supplies that's linked down below, gather those up as well as your bead on it board, and about 3 feet per earring of dragon thread size 8. I'm going to use the gray today. Gather all that up, meet me back and I'll show you the first step. Alright, so now we're set up for step number 1. For step number 1, we're going to do a double right angle weave. So to do that, we're going to put 4 of our 8/0s on our thread. I have it down at the end of the thread. I'm just have enough left over to where I can hold on to it. I'm going to go through that first bead that I added, so bead number 1 out of 4. Just go back through that one. And then when you pull tight, you'll have a little box shaped that we call a right angle weave or raw unit. So to make it a double right angle weave, we're coming out of that first bead, we're going to add another 8/0 and go through the second one. And then we're going to do that 3 more times. Add a bead, go through the next one. And then number 3. And then number 4. Oops, it's flipping around on me. And I'm going to come out of that first corner bead, so basically the first one that we added on the double right angle weave unit. So now it looks more like a diamond. That's your double right angle weave. And what we'll do on this next part is start adding our quad bows. So our quad bows, if you're not familiar with it, do have 4 holes. You've got 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So it depends on which hole that we're going to go in, but we're going to be using all 4 of them. To start off with, we are just going to go through that first hole, going from the inner side, which you can see that the inner side is a little bit more shorter, and then the outer side is a little bit longer. So then going from the inner side to the outer side, and then we're going to put 4 11/0s on as well. So you have a quad bow and then 4 11/0s. We're coming out of that first point of the double right angle weave. We're going to go through that next one. And while you're adding these quad bows, see how I'm kind of tugging a little bit on it and it's not moving? That happened quite a bit. So just kind of maneuver your quad bow to where it's sitting up against your 8/0 and your double right angle weave unit. And then your 11/0s would be sitting up against the other 8/0 that you just went through. So we're going to do that 3 more times. So again, if you need to, get your quad bow out so you know which one you're going through, which hole you're going through. Go from the inner to the outer, and then add 4 more 11s. Coming out of that point, we're going to go through the next point, and then just wiggle your thread and everything until your beads sit up against the other beads. So go ahead and do the next 2 on that one, meet me back, and I'll show you the next part. At the end of that step, you should be coming through your original 8/0 that you started with. To get set up for the next part, we're going to continue through the quad bow that's right next to it, through that first hole. And then we're going to take our thread, don't add any extra beads, just go from the first hole and then go towards the second hole and go through that from the outside to the inside. Now in this step, we're going to add another round of our quad bows over here. So to do that, we're going to add first an 8/0, then we're going to add a quad bow in the same direction that our windmills or our turbine portions are going in. So that means that we're going to have to go through the outer portion towards the inner, and we're going through that first hole again. So the outer towards the inner in the first hole. And then we're going to add another 8/0 and 1 11/0. So this is what I have on the needle. I have an 8/0, the quad bow, an 8, and then an 11. So we're coming out of that second hole right here. So we're going to go through the second hole of the next quad bow. Just like that. And then when you pull these down, Your quad bow may sit on top of those 4 11-0s that we added in that previous step. Try to get it to where it sits a little bit underneath it. If it doesn't want to stay, that's fine. At the end of this step, you can add it, or you can play with it and everything to get it to the right spot. So again, we're going to add an 8-0 first. Our next quad bow going from the outside to the inside through that first hole. Another 8 and an 11. Coming out of the second hole, just go through the next second hole of the next quad bow in line. And then try to get that quad bow that you just added underneath the 4 beads of that original step. So go ahead and finish out these 2 sections and then meet me back and I'll show you the next step. Finishing out that step, you should be coming out of that second hole of your original quad bow that you're at the moment. This is where I was talking about that if your 11-0s or your quad bows are not sitting underneath the 11-0s, this is where you can kind of tuck them underneath a little bit. And when you pull tight, it should kind of sit a little bit better for you. To get set up for the next one, we're coming out of that second hole on the inner side of that quad bow. We're going to go from the inner to the outer and just move on up to the third hole. We don't have any other quad bows to add anymore, but you're more than welcome to add more if you like to. Just in this design, I'm not going to do that. So now we're going to go from this third hole to the second hole over here on the second quad bow that we added. To do that, we're going to add 4 11s and then 1 8. We're coming out of that third hole of the first set of quad bows. We're going to go through the second hole of the second set of quad bows. And when you do that, it fills in that gap in between. Now in between the 2 quad bows, we're just going to add another 8. So you can see the 2, or there's an 8 in between the 2 right now. Just make sure you're going through the correct hole, because you want to go through the third hole of the first set of quad bows, but we're going through the second hole of the second set of quad bows at the moment. And then now we're set up to where we can put the 4 11s and an 8. And then we're going to go through that second hole of the second set of quad bows. In between the 2 sets of quad bows is an 8-0. Just make sure to go through the third hole of the first set of quad bows. If you get confused as to which set is which, just look back at the beginning of your quad bow down here. If it's connected to your 4 11-0s from that first round, then that's your first set of quad bows. If it's tucked underneath the 11-0s here, then that's your second set of quad bows. So go ahead and finish the other 2 sides, and I will show you the next step. When you're finished with that step, your thread needle should be coming out of that third hole of the quad bow of the first round. So now we're going to jump to the 4th hole. So go from the outer towards the inner of that quad bow we're coming out of. We're going to add an 8 in between again. So make sure you're going through the second set of quad bows, but through that third hole of that second set. Now to get us to the next quad bow, we're going to add an 8 and then 7 11s. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We're coming out of that third hole of the second set of quad bows. We need to go through the 4th of the first set of quad bows. Like that. Now we're set up to do an 8 in between. Go through that third hole, and then get an 8 and then 7 11s. I think that's 7. 4, nope, that's 8. 4, 5, 6, 7. And then go through the next hole. Like that. So finish up the next 2 sides, and I'll show you the next one. Finishing up that step, you should be coming out of that 4th hole of the first round of quad bows. To get set up for the next one, we want to continue through that 8-0 that's sitting right there and the third hole of the next quad bow. Don't go through that second 8-0, because we're going to do like we did with the other quad bows, go from the third hole and change our thread path again and go through the fourth hole. Now from here, we're going to add an 8-0 and then 7 more 11s. 5, 6, and 7. Make sure that's 7, 5, 7. Yep. So an 8-0 and 7 11s. We're coming out of that fourth hole there. We're going to jump over to the 11 O's that are on this side and just go through the first 4 that are sitting there. Just like that. Now to get to this outer hole over here, we're going to add 4 more 11s and 1 8. So 4 11s and an 8. We're coming out of those 4 11s that we shared with the previous row and this row. And we're just going to go straight through the open hole on the quad bow. So one more time. It's an 8, 7 11s. Go through the next section, just the first 4 11s of the next section. Pull tight, and then add 4 11s and an 8, and continue on to the open hole of the next quad bow. Just like that. So finish up the last 2 sides on this one, and I'll show you the next step. Finishing up that last step, you should be coming out of that fourth hole of the second set of quad bows. We want to get to where we're coming out of just the 8-0 that's on either side of the next quad bow. So go ahead and move through all your beads that you just added on the last section, plus the 4 that you shared from the previous round. And you want to be coming out of that 8-0. So if you can make it through all of them, then that's perfect. If not, take your time and get through just as many beads as you can until you're coming out of that 8-0 that is on either, the first one that's on either side of the quad bow. So now we're going to add 5 11s. So I have 5, and I'm going to go from this 8-0 to the next one, and then continue on through all those beads again until you get to that next 8-0. And that is all you do on this portion. So if you want to continue on and just add your 5 11-0s, that will round out the quad bow, and then meet me back and I will show you the last and final step. Okay, so for our last step, we're going to be adding our wire guard and our ear wire. So we are almost done. So over here is where I added the last 5 of my beads in between the 2 8-0s, so that way it's basically arching around the quad bow itself. I followed all the way through the thread path, or through the beads again, through the thread path, and I'm coming out of that third of the 5 11-0s of the next one. This is where I'm going to add my wire guard. So I'm going to go up one channel, or one side of the wire guard through the channel, go down the other side. I like to pinch my wire guards so they sit a little bit nicer on top of a seed bead, depending on the size of the seed bead. So I'm going to go ahead and pinch mine so it's kind of small. And then I'm going to round out through that third 11-0. And then I'm going to go through it one more time. And then after this, all you have to do is work your way through your thread path and through your beads down to the beginning again. So once I get through this 5th one, I'll try to show you what I mean. Okay. So my starter thread is way down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go through this wire guard that I'm sitting at right now. I'm just going to weave myself down the wire guard. There's a quad bow that I'm sitting at right now. I'm going to weave myself down. So I'm going to go through that 4th hole, and then through the 3rd hole. Try not to catch on to any of the other beads because I just want to go down just the quad bow. until I get to the spot to where I'm closer to the, okay, trying to figure out where I'm at, where I'm closer to the original right angle weave section. So I'm coming out of the first hole of this quad bow. I'm going to go ahead and go through that 8-0, go through the next quad bow. As soon as I figure out where the hole's at. And then I'm going to weave myself down into the first hole. And if I catch on to that corner bead of the right angle weave, which is the double right angle weave section, then that's great. Having problems just going through the quad bow, there we go. Then we're going to get to that corner bead, and then we're going to work our way down into the right angle weave section. And ideally, you want to meet your thread up in the opposite direction than what I'm coming in. At this point in time, I'm in the same direction, but it's the back of the earring. Nobody's ever going to notice. So then from here, you tie yourself a knot. And then after that, you just burn down. And I will burn mine down a little bit closer towards the product here off camera. And then take your ear wire. I'm going to choose these ear wires today. Twist it open. So I'm going to twist it this way. So that way you see that it's opened. And you might be able to just slip it on like this. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That time it did. And then take your pliers and twist it backwards. And then sometimes you do have to kind of pinch it a little bit towards the ear wire, and then your earring is done. Now, if you're wanting to try to do your earrings to where one of them is turning in one direction and the other one is turning in a different direction, meaning that the outer edge is on the right on the one that we did, and then the outer edge is on the left on the other one, just basically do the opposite as far as what beads to pick up. What I ended up doing is once I got one of them done, I flipped it to the back, and then that way I knew, okay, these are the beads, and this is the counts and the orientation and everything in order to get my earring to look like this. So that is my wind turbine, very hard to say apparently, earrings. Thanks so much for watching my wind turbine earrings. They really are a breeze to make, and I hope you like them just as much as I do. And that's what they look like on. So don't forget to like and subscribe so that way you know when Potomac Beads is coming out with new videos. And if you ever need anything, you can always follow down to that link below where the list of supplies is at. There should be some links in there as well that will lead you back to Potomac's website, so that way you can purchase whatever you need. So get ready for the next video, because I know it's going to be a good one.